The green. Okay, we're live.
On both?
Yeah.
Oh, hey
are
guys.
we in the middle camera? Which one are we at?
We're
I can see only one now.
Okay, so the middle one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's
hey
up,
guys. What's going on?
Boom.
We're back. We skipped a week.
leak?
Skipped a week last week. I hope we didn't skip a week.
I still have to pee because I skipped a leak.
I mean, no, just kidding. Yeah, we had some scheduling conflicts.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
But we're back. As prepared as always.
Definitely.
Next Cafe Youth,
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
So just a few more weeks.
Yep.
Come see us.
Not this Saturday, not next Saturday, but the next
We're
one.
gonna have.
Yeah. So what he
Are we
said.
bringing drinks back, or are we doing ice cream again?
Probably
We're
drinks.
Drinks now.
Because it'll be
Ooh,
cool.
guys.
We used all of our ice
Are
cream.
we gonna have coffee this time?
I don't know. Oh,
To be announced. Come
To
and
be
find out.
announced. Yeah, right.
Come and find
we'll
We're
leave
out.
it
gonna have
ambiguous.
the mocktails back in season,
That's true.
so
I don't-
come see me.
I have not been able to
if you
find.
if you wanna tip me, I'll appreciate it.
We
Yeah,
should go to
give
the
her
Greater
like
Youth Fund.
lots of good tips, like always shower.
Oh, I'm
Um,
okay. I meant money, but okay.
Do your math homework.
Don't neglect to clean under your fingernails,
Yeah,
because then they get really nasty and gross.
yeah.
And like
Mine are
sometimes you
decent.
got to get like the nail file and like actually.
And now I'm gonna hide my fingernails.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mr. Sherry, remember to clean under your fingernails.
Okay.
Okay, that'll be discussed.
Yeah. So bring your best advice so you can tip.
Yes, and
tip
also
Faith.
if
And
you would
bring
like to
your friends.
if you would like to give any money to the youth fund for the renovation of the youth room in which Cafe Youth takes place and brings you guys the entertainment you so enjoy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Okay.
I mean, if you haven't seen it recently, we took the ceiling out.
Yeah, we
Yep.
have no more ceiling. We're
New
gonna
lighting.
new lighting,
Paint,
painting
coming soon.
up. Yeah,
Coming soon.
after we finish
new
the
accessories,
nitty-gritty.
The most
blankets,
recent
stuff
thing
like that.
is the light switches work again.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow,
what?
look
So
at
now if we need to go
you.
get the drums on a Friday, we're
Yeah.
not like, okay, where on earth we can't turn the lights on?
Oh my
Cool.
You don't have to
Gosh.
climb a ladder to turn the lights anymore. You can just flip the
Sweet.
switch. Bam.
Wow, who would have thought that flipping a switch would turn on a light?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what you would think, but for
right,
a while,
right.
like,
Just
It was a switch. It was just up on the top of a wall. So.
yeah.
yeah. So you had
Yeah.
to like.
And not that you necessarily care. It was I had to wire in a 4-way switch and 2 3-way switches in order to make it work.
Because I
Which is
understood all of
crazy.
that.
A normal switch is a 2-way switch.
Okay.
And then if you're gonna have it where you can turn on and off in 2 places, it's a 3-way switch.
Okay.
Like 2 3-way switches. And then you can do a 4-way switch, so you have to have 2 3-ways and a 4-way. So you can turn it on and off in 3 different places.
Yeah.
And it's like a wiring nightmare.
Where's the third place to turn it on and off? Is it the one on top of that?
No, it's in the
Sound booth?
In the sound booth.
Ah.
And that one has a dimmer on it, so we can. Pretty excited. Okay, I'm totally
He
distracted.
just took a video of us, by the way.
Nice. He's gonna post it on his Facebook.
Yeah. I knew he's gonna get doxxed.
If you're wondering who he is, his name is David, and
Mhm.
he's running
Yeah.
cameras for us.
Thank
Say
you.
hi, David.
Hello.
Yeah, we actually picked that up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did pick that up.
Yeah, we did. So, yeah. So thank you, David, for running videos for us.
For
Thank
sure.
you. And now, we were totally not stalling.
No, because we're totally ready.
Because we're totally
We're
ready.
totally ready.
Like we always are, every single
Exactly. I said we were
Every-
prepared as we always are.
Definitely.
podcast. Mhm, yep.
I don't know
Anyways.
if that's a good or a bad thing, but
So today we are going to be talking about how to deal with your anger.
I don't have an anger issue, and I don't appreciate you telling me that I do.
I think that's called anger, Mr. Siri. What you just expressed.
If you say that one more time,
So
that was a yoke.
it cracked me up.
stop. You guys are so bad. Okay, anyways, so today we're going to be reading part of Ephesians 4. We're going to start in verse
26.
26. Thank you, Mr. Siri.
All right. I intentionally did not pay attention to this.
Right.
So
okay.
I'll at least have a blind reaction
Yeah, blind
to
reaction.
the chapters I have memorized from Bible Bowl.
You memorize Ephesians?
Yeah, I had Ephesians and Philippians.
Okay, so we're not going to read it. You're just going to recite it.
Yeah,
Oh,
go.
okay, I didn't even recite it to
4.6.
Luke. I read it. I mean, I recited it. Kids, study your Bible Bowl. Unless you don't want to, but still do it
Anyways.
anyways.
Ephesians 4:26. Are you reading this, Faith?
I can.
Go.
Okay. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing, anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. We're gonna stop there.
What translation is that? Do you know?
I think it's NIV or NLT, New Living Translation.
No,
yeah.
I have New Living Translation and it's different.
So it's NIV.
Yeah, you missed
Question mark. Hold on.
No problem. Doesn't necessarily matter. I was just trying to follow along and it was different. I feel
Yeah,
like
it's NLT.
He has the new.
I have the New Living Translation.
Right.
Yeah, you
I'm
have
the
the
New Living
new Lively translation.
Right.
And you have New Living Translation.
There it is.
But,
I
okay.
feel like that don't let the sun go down on your anger is
That's-
like a common knowledge or
Don't
like
go to
a
bed
prof-
angry.
Like a saying.
Yeah,
Or like a,
it's like a saying, like don't go to bed angry.
But you'd be surprised like how often people do, because I think while like yeah, like I think that's a literal thing, but I also think that it's something it's essentially saying don't hold on to your anger.
It's on. What are you doing?
Who's already?
Ignore me.
But it's like it's like don't let your anger carry over to the next day, which is something that I find it's so people hold on to anger so much longer than they think they do.
Holding grudges is easy.
Yeah.
Especially if it's over stupid things. And I feel like people hold grudges when they shouldn't.
Mhm.
And so they dwell on that anger and they're like, you know what, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to get revenge and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then it's all out of anger.
Mhm.
But they don't stop and think, oh, well, this is something stupid. Like, I shouldn't really be dwelling on this. I shouldn't really be thinking about this much.
Well, and sometimes I think it's just because people get hurt,
Mhm.
and so it's kind of a reaction, right? They've gotten hurt, and so their initial reaction is just to be angry with them, and sometimes they don't actually like pause and think about like the process of what like sometimes people do stuff intentionally, but a lot of times I think when we get hurt and then get angry about it, it's a lot of times just like an unintentional thing, and maybe people like it could have maybe been avoided, but it wasn't necessarily that they were purposely like, hey, I'm gonna do this to Larry. It was just something that they didn't do something, or they could have like they didn't necessarily like, I'm gonna do this to Larry. It was just something that happened
Yeah.
that maybe could have been avoided, but now I'm angry at them
Yeah.
because it seemed to me kind of like they could have avoided it, so blah blah blah. I'm angry at them.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, you can almost take that literally. Like, I know sometimes I have to take that sentiment literally, because sometimes I get myself so worked up and I get myself so mad that I literally can't go to sleep. And I'm
Yeah.
like just laying in bed awake, furious, like basically just.
And then you start to get mad because you can't sleep because you're so angry. And then
Yeah,
it's just
and then,
a
like,
cycle.
And it's such a vicious cycle, because then you end up getting like 5 hours of sleep. And what were you doing? You were laying in bed awake, angry.
Exactly.
So to come at it from a more literal angle, I think it's also very true. Sleep is important.
Sleep is very important. Get your sleep. The first part of 26, in your anger, do not sin. Could you imagine what this world would be like if people didn't make their choices in anger?
That would be.
That would solve so many problems. So many. Whether it's in your marriage, whether it's with your kids, whether it's at your work, whether it's school, whether it's whatever. I feel like a lot of things would be better.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Well, and I know we've done a Cafe Youth on revenge,
Yes, we have.
which, you know, in my mind, revenge always starts a cycle, right? And I feel like acting out of anger oftentimes results in a revenge being taken.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you've thus created a cycle. And so not only have you done harm for this one decision that you've made, you have set in motion a potential long series of events that will continue to harm and damage your community environment, personal relationships, etc.
Yeah, what I wanted to say about this was that it said, don't let your anger cause you to sin. Not that anger itself is a sin. Like
Yeah.
that's an emotion
Yeah.
that we feel, right? Like sadness or happiness. It's an emotion that we can necessarily avoid.
It's what you do with that.
But yeah, like if you are acting like you're feeling the anger control you, and then you're doing something stupid, that's the sin, not having anger itself.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, that's really, it's something so interesting, because I think when we think of do not sin, we think a lot of the very typical, like, don't kill somebody, don't steal some stuff, don't commit adultery, yada yada yada, that whole thing. But then, like, especially when you look into like the idea of, like, I know, like, Jesus talked about with lust of, if you, or like adultery and relating it to lust, and it's if you've even looked at a woman and lusted
In a
after her,
sexual
you've
way,
committed
yeah.
adultery.
Yeah.
And if you think about that and like you apply it to like murder, or like if you've looked at someone and wanted to kill them, you have committed, like, I'm not necessarily saying that's the same, that logic
It
carries
applies.
over and applies, but like even just thinking about it in that light, like, you know, sinning is not necessarily always just action. It can be
Mental action. Yeah.
and which can step on, I know it steps on my toes, because while I don't always act out of anger, I very oftentimes think out of anger.
Right.
Or you want to act out of anger.
Yeah, because of what I'm thinking.
And I
yeah.
think that's where it starts at there in 27. It says, "For anger gives a foothold to the devil." Right. So it's that process, and continuing to dwell on that and continuing to be angry about it, that gives like a foothold, or like, a place that the devil can jump in there and like, oh yeah, like keep reminding you about this thing and continue to like, then I guess cause it to be a sin.
So I'm basing this whole thing off of a sermon that I saw, and the preacher said he looked up the like original word for foothold. I don't remember what it was, but it basically translates to like a space or a room. So you're creating room for the devil if you dwell in your anger, basically.
And I think it's really interesting to look at why people want to act and think out of anger, and and in combination with that, the very nature of sin, which is selfishness. And a lot of times when you want to act out of anger, it's because you've been hurt and you deserve justice, and it's all about you. You don't take your eyes off yourself and consider outside perspective. Does that always make something somebody does to you justified that makes you angry? Not at all. But oftentimes that's something that can help step away from the anger, is because you get in almost like your own echo chamber.
Right.
And you don't.
I feel like
tell
that
anybody
step
about it.
is the hardest to like change, though, because you're
Oh,
so
most
focused
definitely.
on yourself, you're so focused on like getting revenge and being mad and all this and all that. I feel like, yes, it is hard to take that step back and be like, hey, sometimes it's not really like their fault, it's not your fault, it's an accident, whatever. There's no point in trying to do something about it when you can't change it. But I feel like if you take that step back, and whether it's like a physical step back, whether it's a deep breath, whether you count to 10, whatever it is, I feel
a
like
prayer.
trying to, yes, or saying a prayer, trying to take that step and trying to look at it in a different perspective would change a lot of people's minds and a lot of people's thought processes when it comes to anger.
Definitely. I'd agree with that. So I guess we did read 28 already, right? It says, if you're a thief, quit stealing, and then instead use your hands for good, hard work, and then give generously to others in need.
Sorry to interject,
No
but
problem.
what did Faith Translation say? Didn't it say like do something with your life?
It says, anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful with their own hands,
doing something useful with
that
your
they
something
have,
useful.
that they may have something to share with those in need.
That, I feel like that's just that's so poignant.
Like, do something useful with your life. Like, come
Like,
on now, guys.
Okay, you're stealing, but what does that accomplish? And I feel like that's such a great, that's not just a good for stealing. And I'm sure that'll get into it in later verses, because oftentimes when they're stealing, there's a whole list of,
Yeah.
if you were blah, 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 blah. But it's almost just like saying, who's this helping?
Yourself.
Yeah,
It
but is
all
it,
goes back to yourself.
well, but I would like to challenge that even further. Is it actually helping you? Or is it just making you feel a little better?
It depends on what you're stealing.
Or
Well, and the
no, I
reasons
think
for- It's
well,
a
because if
temporary.
we're talking about like action, if we're talking about actions taken out of anger, I think it's more just
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
retaliation type of thing.
That's for sure.
Because I know
It
some
just
people do
hurts
what
you
they
in
do
the
a
long
certain
run.
way. Yeah.
I like how it has like a contrast. It's like, if you're a thief, first stop that. Right? Like,
Right.
that's the first step, stop that. But then don't just stop, like, replace it with something else. It says, instead, use your hands for good, hard work. Or, as your translations, like, for something useful.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, replace your bad habit with a good habit. And then, once your good habit is like, once you have the good habit, then you can start blessing others with a
that
good habit.
yeah.
So it's like, replace the bad with the good, and then continue on the good so you can bless others with it. And I think that's an important thing to, like, if you're trying to stop a bad habit, it's really hard to just stop a bad habit. You have to, like, stop and then replace it with something else. Like, hey, whenever I'm tempted to do this, instead I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then the new thing becomes a habit, and then hopefully, can go to the point of blessing others with that.
I really like the next verse. Verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, and that it may benefit those who listen.
Yeah. And mine says, do not use any foul or abusive language. Yours says use wholesome, right?
Unwholesome.
Unwholesome.
Yeah.
So mine says foul or abusive. So, like, foul is just, like, I've heard some people be like, well, like, it doesn't matter if I use cuss words or not, right? But I think those kind of have, like, a negative connotation to them. And when you're speaking in negative terms, it kind of just drags your whole vocabulary down. And so it's like, don't use the foul language or abusive language, which is like putting people down.
Yeah. Which, and I know, like, for the swearing thing, I know I've talked to some people, and me personally, I do find some truth in it, but a lot of times people will say there is no such thing as a bad word necessarily, right? It's a word that we give a negative connotation. And so they're like, in any situation where it's used in a negative connotation, that is absolutely unacceptable. But at the end of the day, a word is a word. And obviously that has its caveats. I'm going to put that out there, like slurs, that's a no-go, period. But, for like some other stuff, know. But I just wanted to play devil's advocate on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it kind of is just a cultural thing. I know for myself, I kind of have, like, I call it my grandma rule, because my grandma's, like, super conservative, right? Or she was, like, she's passed away now, but like, I've always had a rule of, like, if I wouldn't say it around my grandma, then why am I saying it?
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want to be like, oh, now I can't say this word around my grandma. And I didn't want to have to try to change so it's kind of just like a rule that I put in place for myself. I was like, if I don't feel comfortable saying that around my grandma, then I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
Right? So things like frick, like, I don't like saying that around I wouldn't have said that around my grandma. So then I don't say it in general. It's just like, hey, so that's kind of just the thing I put in place.
Watch your language.
I'm sorry.
Miss Fisher would be on you for that.
I know,
Right.
right?
Swear
Sorry,
jar.
it was an example. That's what I was saying. I don't use that word. Even though in general that doesn't have, like, a negative, like, people aren't like, oh, you're not saying a bad word.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just like, oh, I don't.
Well, and I think, too, it's just, I think most important is the context, and that's, like, what the verse is talking about.
Yeah.
And yes, I do agree that a lot of those things, like, compound on the context to make it worse and whatnot. But I find it really, just trying to steer a little more back on topic of the verse because of side tangent. But I feel like that's something that's so quick to everybody, that everybody does, and it's so hard not to respond to foul language with foul language.
And it's sorry.
I was gonna say, maybe we're, like, focusing completely on the wrong part of this verse.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say.
Because it starts
like,
off and says, don't use foul, abusive language.
Instead.
But it says, like, this is what you actually need to be doing. And so really, I guess, if we focused on let everything you say be good and helpful,
we wouldn't
so
have
that
to
your
worry
words-
about what we can't say. Yeah.
I like how it says, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs. So every person's needs are going to be different, whether this person needs affirmation on their spelling test, or this person needs good words for
you're doing good.
their life or their job or whatever they're doing. It's different for different people.
Yeah.
Like, I know for me, when I get a compliment on, like, my artwork or my makeup or whatever, I know that personally makes me feel really, really good. If someone's like, oh, like, you did really good on, like, your math test today, or congratulations, you read a book, like, good job, like, thanks. But I mean, when it's more personal to me, like my makeup or my art or my creativity, it's like, I take it better.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, that this verse does not only apply to compliments. Well, I think compliments are a big part of it, but it also talks about to build others up, and to build others up is not always something that just makes them feel good. Sometimes it's something they have to hear. Like,
That's true. Like a hard truth.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily mean, because it says to build others up. So if you're going to present it in a way that is harmful to them, well, then that's obviously not what it's talking about.
Right.
But I know that
Sometimes harsh criticism is the best thing.
Well, I know there's some times where, there's so many times when, like, my mom, for example, has had to give me, like, a hard wake-up call, like,
Right.
end of semesters, for example. With me, that's always my go-to example. When I'm piled up and all the work, it's, I'll do it tomorrow, and my mom's like, you got 1 week left to get all this done, instead of, oh, you got this, you'll be fine. Like, that's what I need. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I got it. And then I start, like, which that's a bad habit in itself to begin with, but just for an example.
Right.
Sometimes I need that hard truth instead of that compliment. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that all depends on someone's needs.
Yeah, that's
like
what I
someone
need.
might been, someone completely different could have been more understanding and more hopeful when someone was like, oh, hey, like, you have a week left, like, you got this, I believe in you, like, you can do this. And then the next person, like you, could be like,
oh, whatever.
oh, okay, well, hey, you have a week to do this, like, get your crap together.
Yeah. Well, that's like if...
Hate and foul language. I'm just kidding. Joking.
Well, we use the Miss Fisher rule. No, I'm just kidding. But...
No. I think it also comes with relationship. I always,
Yeah.
whenever thinking about words of encouragement and building people up, the relationship with that person is always key. Because I might need to hear something, but if I don't know you and you tell me that, I become defensive. So, like, you have to know that person, have that relationship. And to have those, like, harder conversations like you're talking about, Michael, of, like, your mom knows you and she knows, and you have that relationship that she's not, like, mad at you. She's like, hey, you need to get your stuff. Well,
for the most part.
Right. Right. But, like, if someone you didn't know came up and, like, started getting you, like, hey, you need to get your stuff together, that would come across differently.
Yeah.
So
To
that
be fair, I'm
relationship
used to
is...
it at this point. But,
Well,
for something more sensitive.
Right. For more sensitive issues, a lot of times it would be...
And also, can I just bring up the fact that it says words to build up, and that sometimes that might mean no words at all are best. Because sometimes there's nothing that you could say that would make the other person happy. And I'm not trying to say that as, oh, they're impossible to please, but sometimes people just need to get stuff off their chest. I know, like, I've been there, and sometimes the best thing that person could say to me was nothing.
Yeah.
And just let me.
Because when they say nothing, you know that they were listening. Like, when you're having a deep conversation and you're, like, ranting
or they didn't hear you at all.
What? Yes.
Well,
but most of the time, if they just look at you and they hug you, or they just, like, you can tell that they listened and that they absorbed what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a relief. Once, even though they didn't say anything, like, it's still a relief because you know that there's someone else that's, like, listening to you.
That's
I have a hard time with that, I'll be honest, because, like, whenever people, like, share something with me, I'm kind of, like, I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, here, you just need to do this to fix it. So I have to, like...
You do that with me all the time.
But I warn you first.
You do.
At least it's the problem I know that I have.
Well, and
at least you can admit it.
It's the first step, right? Admitting that you have a problem.
Yeah.
Now you just need to seek help.
Okay.
Well, that's what I found. Like, a lot of times I feel like when people think about therapists, the hardest part is, what do I say? The hardest part is not saying anything in the middle of the, like.
You're just like,
There's sometimes where I'm
Okay.
like, there's like sometimes where people talking to me and I've been like, I have been through this exact situation. I know what got me through it and I know it can help you. And it's so hard not to just give that because you know, but at the same time, you know they're not ready. So just having to almost like bite your tongue
yeah.
and just wait.
Have you guys seen the YouTube video? It's not about the nail.
No, I don't think so.
I'll have to show it to you later. But there's like this wife and a husband, and the wife has literally like a nail like in her forehead,
Okay.
and she's talking about, like I just have this pain in my head, and whenever I put on my shirts, like it always catches. And he's like, that's because she's like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. It's funny.
Shut up.
Somebody's getting pointed at.
That's not even funny.
I'll send it to you guys later. It's
That's
funny.
you too. That's literally you too.
Okay, sorry, we're getting distracted.
Okay, continue.
Where are we at?
30. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Cool.
So mine says, and do not bring sorrow to God's Holy Spirit by the way you live. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Remember, he has identified you as his own, guaranteeing that you will be saved on the day of redemption. So God's already identified you as his own, and he's guaranteeing that you're going to be saved. So don't bring him sorrow.
Yeah.
That's something that's tough. I feel like,
Yeah.
to almost, because to me, what that's saying is, this is nothing you should be stressed about. This is nothing that you should be losing any sleep over. This is nothing this is nothing salvational, you know.
Right.
Like, God has picked you, he has sealed you, he has redeemed you, and yet here you are stressing over some. And that
Okay.
also makes me think of, I can't remember where the verse is found. I know it's found in Ephesians or Philippians. It was from that Bible.
Come on, Bible Bowl days, let's go.
But it was, no, it's Ephesians 6. And it talks about, and it says, but the enemy is not flesh and blood, but the principalities and powers of this world.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that same thing applies here very much.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I took that differently. Like, I almost took it as like, stop messing up. You know, like stop bringing sorrow to God, because like he's already picked you. But then I'm like, well, messing up doesn't necessarily mean that he's like disappointed or sad about it, as long as you're still like striving to get better. I just think about my kids. Like, I'm not upset if they don't like write their name perfectly, right? Because they're still making progress. Like, they're still writing their name even though it's not done well.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about being perfect. It's about like continuing to try to make progress and grow. But I like what you were
Always a
saying
work in progress. I got him a hoodie that says that, and I absolutely love it. It's like always a work in progress, and I think that's a very good thing to live by. As long as you just continue to want to.
As long as you continue to be a work in progress.
Yeah.
Right. I had a coach that told me, always be content but not satisfied. Like with where you are.
Yeah.
Like, be content that you're happy exactly where you are, but not satisfied, as in like you're going to continue to try to improve and make progress. It's like you're content, you're happy, but I'm going to continue to strive to get better. So content, not satisfied.
All right. 31. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger,
Well, that's easy.
brawling and slander, along with every form of malice.
Mine
Just
says,
get rid of it.
get
Gone.
rid of
Bye.
bitterness,
it's,
rage,
it's no
anger.
longer a thing. It's erased. It's canceled. It's fired. It's done.
Just get rid of it.
And that's so easy.
It's not here anymore. Can't feel it. Can't do it. Can't see it. Can't whatever.
Yeah. But again, like it's giving us this contrast again if you go to 32, because it says, in 31 it says, get rid of blah, 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 like these bad things. And then 32 it says, instead,
Yeah.
be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgive one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you.
I remember that verse now.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, I've always remembered it.
like get rid of these bad things,
And put these
and
better
then
things in your
instead,
life.
like do something else instead.
Personally, I'm so glad that we have other things to put there instead, because I don't know if you've ever tried to stop doing something without having to fully replace it. But it's like, it's almost like, like I had to stop biting my nails. And like literally like last year I stopped biting my nails. That's a little embarrassing, but whatever. But so then there was
Still bite my
times,
nails.
there was times when like I was sitting in the car or something, for example, when normally I would be chewing on my nails, and I was sitting there and like I had no music or anything, and I was just focusing on not biting my nails, and it was so strenuous. But as soon as
Right.
like I got my phone out or I put headphones in, started playing some music, it was almost like it wasn't even there, right?
Right,
Because I could
like
fill
changing
it
the
with something
focus.
else. Yeah. So now, think of that. That's just the urge to bite your nails, right?
Yeah.
That's nothing insane. But now you're talking about somebody has hurt you, somebody's cut you deep, and
Yeah.
now you would just be sitting there trying not to feel hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like that's a near impossible task.
Yeah. Bitterness, rage, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of evil behavior.
And that's stuff that you literally see and hear and deal with in everyday life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Literally every single day, no matter you're at work, school, play, no matter what you're at, you're always going to deal with negative things like that.
Yeah. Just trying to imagine like almost an emptiness, because it's almost like saying don't fill this cup with water, or well no, okay, better illustration. There's a cup full of water, and then you say, okay, no more water, and you dump it out, and the cup's still there. Well, then that cup could still be filled with water,
Mm.
right? But if you say, don't fill it with water, instead fill it with milk, and you fill it with milk, the water doesn't really have room to come back.
Right.
Once you've replaced it, it's replaced. It's not, oh, let me
Yeah.
make room for this too. It's instead of,
Right.
But
Yeah.
How long have we been going? I think there's a time running.
Like 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
so I have some takeaways if we're done
Yeah, go.
with everything. Okay, so there is no victory in anger. And to me personally, when he said that, I thought that was very powerful. I was like, you can't win being angry. You can't.
Remember that.
You need to remember that. Being offended is inevitable. Living offended is a choice.
yeah. I mean,
Makes
that's
sense.
You are
That's a whole lot
going
easier said
to
than
be offended sometime, some point in your life. No matter what it's about, no matter who it's with, you're going to be offended.
Maybe
It's
push
gonna
the power
happen.
button to turn off.
Yeah, it turned out.
But
Almost done.
living offended, being like, oh, this person did this many years ago, and this, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to let that go. You can choose to forgive them. You can choose to say, you know what? It's okay.
Can you kind of choose to be offended or not?
well, I feel like you can, but there's an extreme caveat of it's in no way, shape, or form easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I feel like oftentimes when I've gotten offended over certain things or the lack of certain things, I've fallen into where a lot of my offenses come from is like a woe is me kind of mindset of,
Hmm.
oh, my life, it's so miserable, it's so hard. How am I going to live with this one person saying this one thing about me?
Right.
And that doesn't mean don't get hurt, but that's just saying you don't have to carry that hurt with you. To
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I like
my
that.
personal takeaway.
The day of your hurt should be the day of your healing. I thought that was really cool. The day that you're hurt, the day that you're offended, the day that you're whatever, you should try to
Let it go.
Let
Let
it
it
go.
go. Sorry, I thought
That
they
was
were
really
empty.
good. I didn't expect that at all.
I thought it was empty.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
It's empty.
Okay.
All right.
Anyways,
Glad we got that out there. So, here are some nevers you should try in your life. Never
have I ever.
call names. Don't
Faith?
I was gonna say this.
I'm sorry.
no name calling should be better. Don't.
Oh, it's okay. I just call it.
Are these like things never to do like in an argument?
Yes, that would, or when you're angry.
Because like, what if Mr. Siri comes home to his wife and is like, "Hey, beautiful."
Well, I mean, hurtful names.
Okay.
Hurtful names. We should clarify.
Caveat.
Anyways,
Asterisk.
never raise your voice in anger.
What if somebody's half deaf? I'm just kidding.
In anger,
In anger.
never get historical.
Ooh.
In
Like
anger.
bringing up the past.
Do not bring up the past in your anger because it is just
Yeah, I
gonna
feel
hurt
like these
you.
are things not to do in an argument. Like
Yeah,
like this is like marriage counseling.
pretty much. Never say never. Always. You always do this. You never do this.
Yeah.
Don't bring that up.
Oh yeah.
While we're
'Cause then
talking
you're-
about marriage counseling, you should also like state things
for all the married people.
for all the married people
Yeah.
or I mean, it's really just like relationship things, right? But if you're having a disagreement, don't say things like you do this or you do that, but state them in a way that like how you perceive them.
Yeah.
So
Or
you'd be
you
like, it seems
Yeah.
seems to me that you don't ever do this, or that you hardly ever do this would be better.
Make sure it's not fact, but it's.
But
perception.
yeah, it's like your perception, and then be like, what I feel like I do that.
Then that's where
or,
the conversation began.
Speaking of all the people in relationships, never threaten a divorce or a breakup.
Yeah.
Because that is only going to cause more hurt and more heartache in the long run.
Well, and it leaves it as an option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Well,
if
that's
you, if divorce, or if divorce is an option, then most likely it's gonna end up
End in-
there.
yeah.
Like, cause stuff is gonna get hard.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go into a marriage, like divorce is not an option. That's why you say your vows. It's just like, hey, that's not an option anymore, and so that can't really be like on the table, something to bring up, because you're saying, no matter what, whatever's happening, we're gonna work through this and we're gonna get through this. So that, like, in my mind, whenever you've made your vows, then that takes the divorce out of the conversation. And I do realize that there's like some extreme situations that like divorce is an option.
Yeah.
But that should never be like your mindset. So like take that out of your
When things
conversations.
get hard, I'm just going to get a divorce.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
it's also like an escape. So you're not even dealing with the problem. You're just
Yeah,
running
you're just
away from
escaping.
it.
Yeah.
And then most likely that same problem is going to occur later because you never figured out how to deal
Come
with
back
it.
to bite you, yeah.
This is the last one of the nevers that you should do in an argument or whatever. Never quote their past. If someone comes to you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a spouse, whether it's whatever, and they lay on the table what they did in their past and they're very vulnerable with you,
Oh, okay.
and you bring that up in a fight or you bring that up when you're
right.
arguing, that's going to hurt them and you even
Well,
more.
and it breaks trust.
Yes, it does.
Right? Because if they've entrusted you with this information, and then you're throwing it in
You're
their face.
using it against them.
Right. Yeah. So it was like they came to you for healing in a safe situation. Now you're throwing it back in their face. Yeah.
Exactly.
That kind of was with the, like, don't get historical. But I guess the historical is more of things that you've experienced in the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see the difference now.
Anger is not justifiable.
Anger as an excuse is not justifiable.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I was going to say
Right.
the feeling, yeah, I would say, like, it's a
What you
feeling.
do in the anger
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not
okay.
That's
justifiable.
what, like, I don't feel like using it as an excuse. You can't ever use anger as an excuse.
Yeah.
Well, I was
Anger
angry when
cannot
I hit you,
justify
or
it.
I
Yes.
was
Yeah.
angry when I threatened this, or
Yeah, okay.
whatever. Get rid of all anger, the best that you can. And it's not going to be easy. We're not claiming whatsoever that it's going to be easy, but you have to want to take that step back, saying, "Oh, hey, wait, I'm feeling angry. What can I do to resolve it?"
Yeah. And
Just
it
take that
takes
step.
a step at a time.
Forgiveness is key.
That would be a good podcast topic.
We always
Forgiveness.
talk about, oh, just forgive them or whatever. It's not always that easy. It's really, really not. But deep down, you are going to feel so much better about yourself and about others once you learn how to forgive and forget. It takes time.
So
Go ahead.
for the next podcast,
Oh, yeah.
we can talk about forgiveness.
Yeah, let's go. It takes time to love up close.
Takes time to love.
Takes time to live up close, to love up close. It's really easy to be behind a screen, to be
Fake.
far away, and say all these nasty things and to do all this.
Yeah, that's why we have road rage. That's why we have like cyberbullying.
Exactly.
Because you have like
Anonymity, yeah.
there's
But when somebody
there's a
is-
space between.
Up close, it takes time to get to know them, to get to develop a relationship with them. And just take your time, be patient. And they're going to mess up eventually. They're going to make you angry. They're going to make you mad. They're going to whatever. Try to forgive. And
That's next week's topic.
try not to
Act in anger.
use your anger against them.
Don't fall to the dark side.
The dark side does have cookies, though. So.
No, it doesn't. Those cookies are poisoned. They taste pretty
Oh,
good
yeah,
going
yeah.
in. But
Coming out, they don't taste the best.
yeah, or like inside they. I wasn't gonna like
They
go all
don't
the way
taste
there.
the best going out.
I would
We
assume
don't have
nothing
taste
would
buds
taste.
there.
I would assume nothing.
You don't
would
know
taste.
that.
I feel like that's a pretty easy thing to test.
It
I've
could
never-
come up this way, not necessarily that way.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, the point is that it's not good for you in the long run.
Yeah.
So. I didn't. Okay, didn't mean to stuck.
We
that.
digress.
We did.
We did. A little bit. That's okay. In 2 weeks, we will come back with another podcast about
Hopefully we can
forgiveness.
We can do it next week.
Hopefully, what?
We can do it next week or in 2 weeks.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really
Because
matter.
we should have done it last week.
Oh, next week? Question mark?
Let us know in the comments. Just kidding.
No
That's
one
not gonna
comments
happen.
on these.
Hey, someone's gonna comment on these.
Hey,
one of
we
these
have
days.
to keep trying.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
comment down below. Share, like, subscribe.
If you've made your schedule to go around our podcast, let us know, and then we'll do it next week
Yeah.
Yeah.
to get us back onto the
So
normal
you want to
If you're our
plan
number
for
one
next
fan.
week?
fortnightly. What?
We're gonna plan for next week. We talk about forgiveness,
And then get back on the 2
and then
week.
get back on the 2 weeks,
I mean,
so we
Hang
can be
on.
back on normal schedule.
Unless we want it to be 2 weeks would be right before Cafe Youth.
no. So let's do it next week, so we could have one planning meeting. Like,
Yes.
Okay.
Thursday.
So next
yes,
week.
Yes. Yes.
yes, next week.
Next week
Decided.
podcast.
Never mind.
We're back
Still
on schedule.
comment,
Forgiveness
but
is
it's
key.
decided.
Yeah, we just decided.
We just wow.
Still
This is
comment,
the first
though.
time we've decided like
Please still
What?
comment.
We-
If you got ideas and suggestions, comment.
Yeah.
You can do that.
or
Please.
text us,
Please.
email us if you still do that. That's weird.
Email. What's our email?
Or if you have our personal emails or our personal numbers or Instagram, Snapchat.
Sister Siri has a school
Whatever.
email, so
I do.
Ew.
lsiri@tulsaacademy.org.
There you go.
If you can spell my last name, you've got it.
That will.
Sery.
It's not Siri like the iPhone Siri. Hate to break
No,
it to all
it's
you
better
people
than
who
that.
thought that. But
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So, October.
hope
23rd.
you guys come to
Cafe
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Come
Yeah.
to Cafe Youth. Hope
Yeah,
you guys have a
Enrique.
good rest of your day.
No name
rest of your
call.
night.
I got.
I can't.
kind of, like,
Oh, you're like wrapping it
I
up.
don't know, yeah,
I was
I'm
trying
trying
to call
to.
out Enrique. I was hoping
Okay,
he's gonna
but-
watch
in
this.
trouble for name calling. No, I'm just kidding.
we're not supposed to name call, remember?
Yeah, remember? No name calling. Out
Negative
of
name
anger.
calling.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, but that
Anyways,
was-
so I hope you guys have a good night, good evening. I go.
Yeah, like, comment,
Stay
subscribe.
safe.
Tune in next week for our
Forgiveness is key.
action-packed racing podcast.
Heck yeah.
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 Racing podcast.
Yes. There's a 50% chance that is a lie. You'll just have to tune in next week to find out.
Could be on forgiveness. Could be racing.
Or racing forgiveness. Or forgiveness.
Oh
racing.
yeah. Are we each gonna have a car named
No, we're gonna
Forgiveness
have
and
a
just
snail.
racing the cars?
We're gonna have a snail, and it's
Oh,
just
okay.
gonna go. It's gonna be snail racing, but we're just gonna have a
Oh,
podcast
bet,
while
bet.
it's going.
So turbo is like happening.
Yeah, you can kill your snail if you want to.
Bet.
Okay. Anyways, thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
watching,
tuning
guys.
in.